My name is Sarah Calloway. I'm 34 years old. 6 years ago, I picked up the phone, dialed the non-emergency line for the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and reported my own brother. And then my entire family, every single one of them, acted like I'd never been born. My mother, Carol, told me I was poison in this family. My father, Frank, said I was no child of his. My sister, Amber, my own flesh and blood, went on Facebook and called me a manipulative liar by name for all 4,000 people in Cedar Falls, Ohio to see. I was removed from the family group chat on a random Tuesday afternoon like I was a spam contact. I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving. I wasn't called on Christmas. My birthday came and went in February, and not one person from the family I'd grown up in said a single word. For 5 years, I was completely alone. But here is what none of them knew, what I barely knew myself: I wasn't the only one. There were 8 others, all inside our own family tree. Every single one of them had been keeping the exact same secret, buried under the exact same silence. What happened in that courtroom didn't just change my life. Cracked Cedar Falls, Ohio, straight down the middle. But before we get there, I have to take you all the way back to the beginning. Welcome back to Still Standing Stories, where people who were written off learn they were the ones writing history all along. If you're new here, you're going to want to strap in for this one. Hit subscribe because you do not want to miss how this ends. Before we go 1 second further, if you have ever been the person in your family who told the truth and paid the price for it, I need you to hit that like button right now. Not for the algorithm. 'Cause this story is for you. Share it with one person who needs to hear it today. Now let's get into it. I grew up in Cedar Falls, Ohio. Population 14,000. Kind of small town where your business becomes everybody's business before you've even processed it yourself. The Calloway family was about as close to royalty as Cedar Falls had. My parents, Carol and Frank, had lived in the same house on Willowbrook Lane for 29 years. Same church pew, same diner booth on Sunday mornings, same everything. This was their world, and everybody in it knew their name. There were 4 of us kids. Derek was the oldest. Then me. Then Amber. Then Connor, the baby, who bolted to Phoenix at 19 and barely looked back. Smart kid, honestly. Derek was the golden child. No debate. No asterisk. He'd built Calloway Custom Builds, a residential contracting company, from the ground up when he was 26. By the time he was 30, he had 22 full-time employees, a fleet of trucks, and his name on half the new construction signs in Franklin County. He sponsored youth soccer. He donated to the volunteer fire department. He showed up at every ribbon cutting and every charity auction with a smile that could light a parking lot. People in Cedar Falls didn't just like Derek. They needed him. My father needed him too. When Dad took early retirement from the mill at 54 with a bad knee and a fixed income, Derek quietly covered the mortgage on Willowbrook Lane, $1,800 a month, no fanfare, no receipt. Dad never said thank you out loud. He never had to. Derek was untouchable in that house. And me? I was the quiet one. I graduated from Ohio State with my physician assistant certification at 23, $52,000 in student loans, 0 help from home. I got a job at a family medicine practice in Cedar Falls called Riverside Health Partners. Night shifts, early mornings, whatever they needed. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment on Carver Street, 12 minutes from my parents' house, and I built my little life brick by brick. Every night the family group chat would light up. Callaways, all of us on a thread. Mom would send a prayer verse or a photo of the neighbor's dog doing something funny. Derek always replied first. He knew exactly what to say to keep everybody comfortable. That was his gift. I admired it back then, the way he could hold a room together with just the right words at just the right moment. I didn't know yet what he was capable of in the dark. 28, my life was steady. I liked steady. Clock in at 6:45, 12 hours of strep throats and blood pressure checks and anxious parents, clock out, drive home through the flat gray Ohio sky, sleep until 3, repeat. My apartment wasn't much. Second floor of a building next to a dry cleaner on Carver Street, thin walls, heat that rattled every winter, but it was mine. Every stick of furniture, every bill, every square foot of that place. Nobody could take it. On the hook by my front door, I kept a quilt square my grandmother had given me before she passed. She'd cut it from the dress she wore at her own wedding and stitched my initials in the corner. The fabric had faded from deep burgundy to something closer to dried rose, and the edges were starting to fray. I never framed it. I never replaced it. I just left it there on that hook because it was the only thing I owned that felt like home when home stopped feeling honest. I still went to Sunday dinners. I still passed the cornbread and laughed at Dad's corny jokes and helped Mom load the dishwasher. Derek and I didn't fight. We didn't bond. We just existed in the same orbit, two people who happened to share parents. He had his world. I had mine. If you'd asked me then to describe myself, I would have told you straight up. I'm not the loudest voice in the room. Never have been. I do my work, I go home, I mind my own business. That was me. That was my whole identity. Then came Thanksgiving. And one sentence overheard in a hallway changed absolutely everything. My Uncle Wayne's daughter Madison was 17 that November. She was the kind of kid who was always in the background at family gatherings, headphones in, shoulders hunched, drifting from room to room like she was looking for an exit. I'd never had a real conversation with her. I barely knew her. I was in my parents' kitchen that Thanksgiving cutting slices of sweet potato pie when I heard Madison's voice from the hallway around the corner. She was crying. Not the kind of crying you do when a movie gets you, the kind that sounds like something's been squeezed out of you that was never supposed to leave your body. Then I heard Amber's voice, low and clipped. Don't make this into a whole thing. Just don't be alone with him. Okay? Just don't. The knife stopped in my hand. Just don't be alone with him. I set the knife down. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. I walked out of the kitchen like I was headed toward the bathroom. Amber saw me the second I came around the corner and went completely silent. Madison turned and walked the other way fast. After dinner, when everyone was scattered across the living room watching football or picking at leftovers, I found Madison on the back porch. She was sitting on the steps, arms folded tight around herself, breath making small clouds in the November air. I sat down next to her without a word. We stayed like that for maybe a full minute. Then I said, Madison, you can talk to me. Whatever it is. And she did. I drove home in a daze. Sat in my car in the parking lot of my building for 45 minutes with the engine off and my hands in my lap. The dry cleaner's neon sign buzzed on and off outside my window. I stared at it. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I felt something colder than panic, a kind of quiet certainty that I was standing at the edge of a cliff and the only honest thing left to do was step off. The next morning, I called the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. A detective named Dana Mercer met me at the station. She had calm eyes, a legal pad with a yellow cover, and the kind of voice that doesn't flinch at difficult things. She wrote down everything I said without interrupting once. Then she looked up at me. "This is going to be hard," she said. "You sure?" "I'm sure," I said. The investigation moved quickly. Derek was questioned within 72 hours. And within 72 hours after that, my phone rang at 9:22 at night while I was getting ready for a morning shift. Carol Calloway's name lit up my screen. I picked up. Before I could even say hello, my mother delivered 8 words that I will never, for the rest of my life, forget. "You are burning this family to the ground." Not, "Is it true?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" "You are burning this family to the ground." I tried to talk. I told her Madison came to me. I told her Madison was 17 years old and she came to me crying. Mom's voice didn't waver. "Madison is a teenager. Teenagers get dramatic. You should know better than anyone that people exaggerate." She paused. "Derek has done nothing but hold this family up. He pays your father's mortgage. He employs half this county. Do you understand what you're setting in motion? I pressed my back against the bathroom wall and closed my eyes. Mom, I couldn't just. You could have come to me first. You could have handled this inside the family. I didn't respond to that. I let the silence sit. Then she gave me the ultimatum. Pull the report. Tell Detective Mercer it was a misunderstanding. Or don't come home for Christmas. I can't do that, Mom. Then don't come home for Christmas. The line went dead. I stood in that bathroom for a long time. My scrubs were cold against my skin. My shift started in 40 minutes. I put on my shoes. I drove to work. Clocked in. That was the last time my mother spoke to me for 5 years. The next morning, my father called. I picked up expecting something, maybe not support, but a question. A pause. Anything that suggested there was still a version of this where he heard me. Frank Calloway gave me 9 words and a dial tone. No child of mine does this to the family. Click. I stared at the phone. 28 years of being his daughter. 9 words. That afternoon, Amber posted on Facebook. She didn't tag me, she didn't need to. Cedar Falls was 14,000 people. Everybody already knew exactly who she meant. Some people will blow up their whole family just to feel important. Disgusting. 312 likes. 80-some comments. My mother left a red heart. That week, a patient at work looked at me across the exam table and started to say, "You're the one who," and then stopped herself. But I heard the rest in her silence. The investigation ran for 6 weeks. Then it stopped. Madison was 17. Her parents, Uncle Wayne and his wife, pressured her to take it back. They didn't call it taking it back. They called it clarifying. Same result. Without supporting testimony, the DA couldn't build a case. Charges were dropped. Derek went back to work, back to church, back to Sunday dinners on Willowbrook Lane. Town exhaled. A misunderstanding. A jealous sister. Teenage girl who dramatized things. Case dismissed. Detective Mercer called me the day the charges were dropped. Her voice was careful, measured. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I believe you. But I can't move forward without more. I'm keeping this file open." She paused. "If anything changes, I'll be here." That was November of 2019. I didn't know it then, but a clock had just started ticking. And it had already been running longer than I knew. The exile was precise and total. First, the group chat. I watched my name disappear from the Callaways on a Tuesday while I was eating leftover soup at my desk. 1 second I was in, 27 years of belonging, and then the thread was just gone from my phone. Deleted. Removed. Like a file you don't want anymore. Then Christmas. I drove past Willowbrook Lane on Christmas Eve and counted the cars in the driveway. Amber's Civic, Derek's pickup, Mom's sedan. Every window glowing. I kept driving. Then my birthday in February. No call. No text. No card. For the first time in 29 years, Carol Calloway did not acknowledge the day her second child was born. The town followed the family's lead. The woman at the post office started finding reasons to be busy when I walked in. A barista I'd known for years at the coffee spot on Main started spelling my name wrong on my cups. Sarah. Sarai. Sierra. Small, deliberate cruelties from small, deliberate people. I wrote my mother a 4-page letter. I told her why I reported. I told her I loved her. I told her I'd rather spend every holiday alone than stay silent about what I knew. She never replied. I sent Amber a birthday gift, a custom photo book I'd spent 2 weeks putting together, full of pictures from when we were kids, the county fair, Christmas mornings, slumber parties in our shared bedroom. The box came back 3 weeks later. Tape unbroken. Bow still tied. Return to sender in big black stamp letters across the front. I held that box in my hands for a long time. She hadn't even looked inside. I had two choices. Stay in Cedar Falls and live inside that silence or go. I chose to go. If you have ever been pushed out of a family or group, not because you did something wrong but because you told the truth, I want to know where you're from. Drop your city name in the comments right now. You are not alone. There are people listening to this story from every corner of this world who have sat exactly where Sarah sat. Drop your city. Let them see you. Now let's keep going. March. A Wednesday. Till dark when I started loading my car on Carver Street. I'd cleaned the apartment twice. Once because it needed it. Once because I needed something to do with my hands at 2 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. The walls had lighter squares where my pictures used to hang. Kitchen floor had a scuff by the stove that had always been there, but now it felt like a memory. I took the quilt square off the hook by the door and tucked it into the outside pocket of my bag. I locked up, dropped the key in the super's mailbox, and got in my car. 1 suitcase. 1 box of books. PA license. 0 family members who would pick up if I called. I pointed the car north toward Columbus, Ohio. Didn't look in the rearview mirror when I passed the Cedar Falls town limit sign. Didn't cry. Didn't turn on the radio. Just drove. Columbus was gray and loud and enormous, and I loved every inch of it. I got a job at a large urgent care network called MedFirst within 3 weeks. Same kind of hours, different zip code. Nobody knew my last name. Nobody knew my brother. That was the closest thing to relief I had felt in months. The first 2 years were pure survival mode. I found a studio apartment on Neal Avenue, radiator heat, a window that looked out at a parking garage, rent I could just barely manage on a PA's salary. I ate rice and beans 4 nights a week. I paid my student loans every single month without fail. 52,000 became 41, then 33, then 22. I started studying for my specialty certification in emergency medicine. Library on evenings. Study rooms on weekends. Clinical set a free clinic on the east side of Columbus. Passed the exam on my first attempt. And every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I sat across from a therapist named Dr. Patricia Harmon in a little office off High Street, and I took myself apart and tried to figure out what I was made of. Dr. Harmon had a habit of saying things that hit like a stone dropped in still water. About 8 months in, I told her I felt like I had broken my family. She set her pen down. Looked at me evenly. "You didn't break your family, Sarah," she said. The silence did. I wrote that on a sticky note when I got home. I put it on my bathroom mirror. Stayed there for almost 3 years. I also started running. 1 mile. Then 3. Then a 10K through Schiller Park on a cold October morning, and then a half marathon in Dublin, Ohio, where I crossed the finish line alone and thought, for the very first time, this is what it feels like to be proud of yourself without needing someone's permission. I didn't check in on Cedar Falls. I didn't Google my brother's name. I didn't look at Facebook. I was building something new, and I refused to let the old rubble crack the foundation. If you know someone who is in the middle of the hardest decision of their life right now, someone who is choosing between their family's comfort and the truth, share this episode with them. Not with a message. Just send it. Let this story do the talking. Now back to Sarah. Here's where it gets good, y'all, because this is where life threw me something I didn't see coming. I met Jason Whitfield in the waiting room of my own clinic on a Thursday afternoon in September. He'd gotten a nail through his boot at a home renovation job. 3 stitches, nothing major. He was 34, calm, had kind eyes, and kept apologizing for bleeding on the intake form. "Sir," I told him, "this is an urgent care. Bleeding is literally the whole business model." He laughed. An easy, real laugh. Not for show. Not trying to impress anyone. He came back 2 weeks later to get the stitches removed. Then again the following week with a question about a tetanus booster that we both silently acknowledged he did not actually need. We got coffee, then dinner, then Saturday mornings at the North Market where he'd carry the bags and I'd be the one spending 40 minutes picking out exactly the right tomatoes. 3 months in, he asked about my family. I kept it short. I don't really talk to them. He nodded. Okay. That was it. No follow-up. No digging. Just okay. Like he trusted me to open the door when I was ready. 6 months later, on his couch with the TV off, I told him everything. Thanksgiving. Madison crying in the hallway. Amber's voice telling her to just not be alone with him. My mother's 8 words. My father's 9. The box that came back unopened. Facebook post with 300 likes. Jason listened to every word. He didn't react with shock. He didn't try to offer solutions. He didn't do the thing where people get so uncomfortable they start talking about themselves. When I finished, he was quiet for a full 10 count. Then he said 4 words. You did the right thing. 4 words. First time anyone in my life had ever said them to me about that night. You did the right thing. 4 words. That is all it takes to change someone's entire world. If this story is giving you chills right now, hit that like button. Takes 1 second. Tells us to keep making stories like this one. Do it right now and let's keep going. We got married the following April. Small ceremony in Goodale Park on a cool spring afternoon. 14 guests, his parents, his college friends from Columbus State, 2 co-workers of mine. Nobody from my side. I wore my grandmother's pearl earrings because she was the only family I was willing to carry into that day. It was the best day of my life. Now here's a twist that nobody in Cedar Falls saw coming. And I didn't find out about it until way after the fact. Madison Pullman, she'd gone back to her mother's maiden name after everything, was 23 years old by then, a junior at Ohio University in Athens studying social work. She'd transferred once, taken a semester off, the kind of academic path that looks messy from the outside but makes complete sense when you know what the inside looked like. For a research methods class, her professor assigned a case analysis. Find a published report, newspaper, public record, anything about a topic related to developmental trauma. Analyze it. Write a reflection. Madison went to the OU library database. She typed in keywords. Then, on some kind of instinct she probably still can't fully explain, she typed in 2 more words, Derek Calloway. A result came back. Small. Barely a blip. A brief item from the Cedar Falls Register, buried in their archive, dated November 2019. 6 short paragraphs. Local contractor questioned in connection with allegations of misconduct. No charges filed. Madison stared at the screen. She read it twice. 3 times. My name was in the 4th paragraph, listed only as a family member who brought the matter to authorities. She sat in that library chair for 50 minutes. Then she pulled up a new tab and searched for the Franklin County Sheriff's non-emergency number. She did not call her parents. Did not call Aunt Carol or Uncle Frank. Did not call Amber. She called the number at the bottom of the original article. Detective Dana Mercer answered on the 2nd ring. I wouldn't learn any of this for another 15 months. By the time I did, 6 more people had made the same call. But Madison was first. That 17-year-old girl who Amber told to keep quiet, she was 23 now and she was done keeping quiet. Now I want to introduce you to someone who comes into my story a little later, someone I didn't expect. Her name was Kim Vasquez. She was a reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, 29 years old, working the regional crime beat. She'd come across the original Cedar Falls filing during a routine records search, one of those background scans reporters do looking for patterns. She reached out to me through my clinic's front desk, left a message that said simply, I believe I found a story worth telling and I think you're the person who should be telling it. I almost threw the message away. But something about that phrasing stopped me. I think you should be the one telling it. Not I want to ask you some questions. Not can I get a quote. She framed it like the story already belonged to me. I called her back. We met for coffee. She was sharp, direct, and the first thing she said after sitting down was, "I'm not here to make you famous. I'm here because something happened in that county and it got buried, and buried things don't stay buried forever." She wasn't wrong. I didn't go on record with her. Not then. But I told her enough to know she was tracking something real. And she told me that she'd heard rumblings, from sources she couldn't name, that the Franklin County DA's office had opened something new. That conversation planted a seed I didn't know what to do with. By the time I turned 32, my life in Columbus looked like something I dreamed up during those first dark months on Carver Street. Jason and I bought a small 3-bedroom house in the suburb of Worthington, 15 minutes from downtown, a real yard, an oak tree that shed acorns on the roof every October like it was paying rent. We paid a mortgage. We could cover it because we both worked and we'd built ourselves up from scratch with no safety net below us. I was a PA at a private family practice on a Lentangy River Road. Daytime hours. My own patients, my own schedule. I was pregnant. Our daughter Ella was due in June. The life was good. It was genuinely mine. But every Thanksgiving I set the table for two and felt the weight of all the chairs that should have been filled. I want to be clear about something. I did not miss the people who had hurt me. I missed the family I thought I had. Those are two completely different kinds of grief, and if you've ever been cut off, you know exactly what I mean. One of them you can reason your way through. The other one wakes you up at 3 in the morning no matter how well everything else is going. One afternoon in May, a birthday card arrived. Cream envelope. No return address. Shaky cursive handwriting. Inside, daisies on the front, one line. Thinking of you. Connie. Aunt Connie. My mother's older sister. The one person in the Callaway orbit who had never publicly attacked me, and who had also never publicly defended me. She was the Switzerland of our family. Silent and safe and present in neither direction. I put the card in my nightstand drawer and closed it quietly. I thought that was the closest I'd ever get to family again. I was wrong. Ella was born in June. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Jason cried in the delivery room. I did not. I was busy delivering a baby, but I cried later that evening when the room was quiet and she was asleep on my chest, and I realized that this tiny person had more family than she would ever need, even if it was smaller than I'd always imagined. That August, a thick manila envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Aunt Connie's handwriting. Inside, 2 pages of handwritten letter. And 11 pages of printed screenshots from the Callaway family group chat, the one I'd been removed from 3 years before. The letter shook in places where she'd pressed too hard with the pen. Sarah. I should have found my voice sooner. I'm sorry. I can't live inside this anymore. I need you to see what they've been saying since you left. You deserve to know what you've been walking away from. And I need you to know I'm done. I unfolded the screenshots on the kitchen table while Ella slept in her bouncer. The first one was from the week I left Cedar Falls. My mother, she is dead to this family. Her name is not spoken in my house. Ember, 6 minutes later, she always wanted what Derek had. This is jealousy, plain and simple. Everybody knows it. Frank, my father, nothing. In the entire thread, not a single word in my defense. Not one question. Not one maybe we should hear her out. Just his silence, sitting in the chat like a locked room. Then I found the one that knocked the air straight out of me. A private message from my mother to Aunt Connie. Connie had screenshotted it before deleting it. Connie, if you reach out to Sarah, you're next. I mean that. So that was why. Connie hadn't gone silent because she didn't care. My mother had threatened her. I set the pages down. Ella was babbling at her mobile, completely unaware that her grandmother had called her mother dead. I didn't cry. I was past crying about the Callaways. I picked up Ella and called Connie that evening. We talked for 51 minutes. I sat on the back porch with a blanket around my knees and listened to a 64-year-old woman unravel 12 years of something she'd been carrying alone. Connie told me she had known about Derek since he was 24. A younger cousin, someone I barely had a memory of, had pulled Connie aside at a family 4th of July cookout. Pulled her aside, whispered it, begged her not to make a scene. Connie had told Carol. One conversation. Kitchen table. Coffee going cold between them. Carol's response, "You misheard. Drop it." And Connie dropped it. Not because she believed her sister, but because Carol was the only sister she had, and the thought of losing that, even a broken, conditional version of it, was more than she could face. "I've been carrying this for 12 years, Sarah," Connie said. Her voice cracked on the number. 12 years. I pressed the phone to my ear and listened to her breathe. "You were the brave one," she said. "You were always the brave one. And I was too scared to stand beside you when it counted. I didn't have it in me to be angry at Connie. She was another person my mother had silenced. Another person given the same impossible choice, the truth or the family, who had chosen the family. I had chosen the truth. Cost me everything I had. I would make the same choice again." The end of the call, Connie said one more thing. "There are others, Sarah. I don't know how many. But there are others." I closed my eyes and held the phone against my cheek. "I know," I said. I didn't. Not really. But somewhere inside my chest, in some room I'd kept locked for 5 years, I think I had always known. That night I couldn't sleep. Jason was breathing steady beside me. Ella's white noise machine hummed down the hall. The house was settled and quiet. I got up and went to the hall closet. Behind a box of Ella's old newborn clothes I'd been meaning to donate, there was a smaller brown cardboard box, sealed with packing tape, unlabeled. I'd packed it before the move and never opened it. Inside, my PA school diploma. A photo of me and Amber at the Franklin County Fair when I was 11 and she was 8. A birthday card from Dad with a $10 bill still in it. A ceramic mug my grandmother had painted by hand with my name on it. And the quilt square. I pulled it out. The fabric was thinner than I remembered. The burgundy had faded almost completely. The embroidered initials in the corner were coming loose at the edges. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, and wrapped it around my hands. And I cried. First time in almost 2 years. Not the quiet kind. Kind that comes from somewhere below your ribs, that shakes your whole body, that you have to press your forearm over your mouth to keep from waking the baby. I wasn't crying for what they did to me. I was crying for the 28-year-old who drove out of Cedar Falls with one suitcase and a PA license and this fraying square of fabric. She deserved better than what her family gave her. I was going to make sure she got it. I washed my face. Put the quilt square back in the box. Went to bed. At 5:45, Ella woke up hungry and the day started like any other day. 6 months passed. Ella pulled herself to standing on the edge of the coffee table in November and let go, taking 4 shaky steps toward Jason like she'd been planning it all week. He got it on video. I cried, the good kind. I got a raise. We paid off Jason's car. He started volunteering with a youth mentoring program on Saturday mornings. I tried to grow tomatoes in the backyard and they died within 3 weeks because I kept forgetting to water them. Normal life. Real life. The kind I'd spent 5 years earning the right to have. Twice that fall, my cell rang from a Cedar Falls area code. I let it go to voicemail both times. Both messages were empty, just a few seconds of background noise and then a click. I deleted them both. Winter came. Ella turned 1. We had a small party, Jason's parents, 2 couples from the neighborhood, a cake with a single candle. Ella put her whole fist straight into the frosting and looked up at everyone like she was waiting for applause. Everybody laughed. For 1 whole hour, I didn't think about Cedar Falls or the group chat or my mother's 8 words or the word burning. It was a good hour. On a Tuesday morning in March, my phone rang. The caller ID read, Franklin County Sheriff's Office. I stared at it through 3 full rings before I answered. Sarah, this is Detective Mercer. I sat down on the kitchen floor right next to Ella's high chair with a spoonful of oatmeal still in my hand. I told you 5 years ago I'd call if anything changed, she said. Something changed. My pulse went loud in my ears. Ella smacked her tray and said, Mama. I could not respond. 8 individuals have come forward independently over the past 16 months, Mercer said. All family members. All reporting the same person. All completely consistent with each other. 8. I pressed my free hand flat against the tile floor. I needed to feel something solid. The district attorney is forming a grand jury, Mercer continued. We're going to trial, Sarah. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I tried again. Who are they? I can't share names yet, but I want you to know your report 5 years ago is what started all of this. Your name appears in every single one of their statements. You are the reason they came forward. I looked at Ella. She was licking oatmeal off her fingers, completely unaware that the phone call in my hand had just split my life into before and after. I still have my notes from your original report, Mercer said. Same legal pad. I almost laughed. What do you need from me? I asked. Your testimony. If you're willing. I watched Ella drop a Cheerio on the floor and stare at it with profound personal offense, like gravity had been rude to her specifically. I'm willing, I said. I hung up, set the phone on the counter, stared at the ceiling for a long time. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel relief. I felt heavy. 'Cause 8 meant 8 childhoods. 8 silences. And I had only known about one. Jason came home at 6:15. I was at the kitchen table. Ella was napping. The oatmeal on her tray had dried into a crust. He looked at my face and set his bag down slowly. What happened? Mercer called. People came forward. They're going to trial. Jason pulled out a chair and sat directly across from me. He didn't speak for a while. 8, he said finally. 8. He put his hand on the table, palm up. I put mine in it. This isn't a victory, I said. This is 8 people who were hurt and nobody stopped it. You tried to stop it. I reported once and left. You were push-out. Maybe. But I could have fought harder. Jason squeezed my hand. You were 28 years old. You went to the police. Your entire family turned on you. Your own mother told you she'd disown you. Sarah, you did more than anyone else in that family was willing to do. I knew he was right. But knowing and feeling are 2 completely different zip codes, and I was standing at the border. What time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments, your city and your time. I want to know who is listening to this story and where in the world you are. 'Cause this story doesn't belong to one place. Belongs to every person in every time zone who has ever carried a truth they weren't allowed to speak. Drop your city. Drop your time. Right now. I'll wait. I sat in Dr. Harmon's office that Thursday and told her about the call. She listened with her hands folded the way she always did. You cannot hold yourself responsible for a system that was designed to silence you, she said. They were children, I said. And you tried to help. The system failed. And now the system is trying again. She paused. That happened because you didn't quit. 2 weeks later, a manila envelope arrived from the Franklin County DA's office. Inside a subpoena. I was being called to testify. The grand jury formally charged Derek on 13 counts. The Cedar Falls Register ran it on the front page. First time a Callaway had been front page news for anything other than a sponsored soccer tournament. Carol went into full damage control mode. I heard this from Connie, who heard it from a cousin still in town. My mother was making calls. The script was always the same. This is a misunderstanding. Derek would never. These girls are confused. These girls, like they were a club. Like they'd organized. Like there was some conspiracy of children. Then my father called. First time in 5 years. His name on my screen felt the same way it always had, complicated and exhausting. Renee. He called me Renee. My middle name. He'd only ever done that when he was about to say something he knew was wrong. You need to stop this. You need to tell them you made it up. I didn't make it up, Dad. And I'm not the one who came forward this time. 8 other people did. Silence. A door closing. He hung up. 2 days later, Amber sent a text. 1 sentence. You are going to regret this. I screenshotted it. Forwarded it to my attorney. Did not reply. Derek posted on Facebook the same week. Truth will come out. I'm innocent. Thank you to everyone standing by me. 912 likes. A sea of praying for you, and we know who you are, and stay strong. I didn't read the comments. Jason did, and he kept the phone away from me. But he told me about one. My old coworker from Cedar Falls, a woman named Deborah who I'd worked with at Riverside for 2 years, posted a single sentence under Derek's update. I believe Sarah. 1 comment in a sea of 900. But it was enough. Cedar Falls split like a fault line. Half the town planted their flag with Derek. He was the employer, the contractor, the guy whose name was on the building where half of them worked. Loyalty to Derek was loyalty to their own livelihood, and they wore it like armor. The other half went quiet. But quiet had a different texture now. Before, silence meant agreement. Now it meant something closer to doubt. People who used to nod at Derek across the parking lot at the hardware store suddenly found reasons to be busy. Callaway Custom Builds lost 6 employees in less than a month, 2 project managers, a site foreman, the office coordinator. None of them made statements. They just stopped showing up. At Cedar Falls Community Church, Pastor Ellison didn't mention the case by name, but his Sunday sermon was titled When Truth Has Been Waiting. 3 different people told me later that Carol stood up in the middle of it and walked out. Frank followed her. They didn't come back the following Sunday or the Sunday after that. I didn't go back to Cedar Falls. I didn't need to. Here's the thing about silence that nobody tells you. Silence doesn't protect anyone. Just gives the person who caused the harm more time, more access, more room. If you're listening to this and you've ever been the one person in your family willing to say the uncomfortable thing out loud, I see you. You are not alone in that. Being the one who speaks the truth isn't disloyalty. Staying silent while a child is hurting is being part of the cover-up, and it doesn't matter how much you loved the person causing the harm. Drop a comment below and let me know this landed. Now let's keep going. 6 weeks before trial, I drove to Columbus to meet with the assistant district attorney assigned to the case. Her name was Sandra Reeves. Mid-40s, steel gray blazer, zero small talk. She laid out the structure on a whiteboard like a battle plan. I would be the first witness called. Not because my testimony was the strongest, that belonged to the 8 who came after me, but because I was the one who opened the door. The jury needs to understand where this started, Sandra said. They need to understand that 5 years ago, one person tried to tell the truth and got demolished for it, and that what happened afterward was not coincidence. She walked me through the questions she'd ask. I practiced my answers in her conference room while Jason sat in the hallway with Ella asleep in her carrier. My voice cracked on the 3rd run-through. Sandra stopped me. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be honest. I drove home and couldn't eat dinner. Jason made soup and left a bowl on the counter without a word. 3 days before trial, Mercer called for a routine check-in. But she mentioned something at the end that completely undid me. I want you to be prepared, she said. One of the 8 witnesses is someone very close to you. Someone you grew up with. I can't tell you who. But you'll know when you see the witness list. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed and pressed my palms together and held myself completely still. 3 weeks before trial, I was unloading groceries from the back of my car on a Saturday afternoon when I looked up and saw it. A powder blue Toyota Camry. My mother's car. Parked on my street in Worthington. 2.5 hours from Cedar Falls. Carol Calloway was standing on my front porch. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair had gone fully white. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize, holding her purse in front of her with both hands like it was keeping her upright. I set the grocery bags on the ground and walked up the front steps. We stood 3 feet apart. "I'm your mother," she said. Her eyes were wet. "Please don't do this to your brother. Don't do this to me. You drove 2.5 hours to ask me to protect the person who hurt 8 people in our family." I kept my voice steady. Low. "They're lying. All of them. 8 people don't independently tell the same story by coincidence, Mom. Let the jury decide." She grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold. The same hands that had braided my hair. The same hands that had held mine in church. The same hands that had pressed a cold cloth to my forehead when I had a fever at age 7. "If you testify, I will never forgive you." I looked down at her hand on my arm. "You haven't forgiven me in 5 years," I said quietly. "What's one more?" She let go. Her hand dropped to her side. Then she looked past me through the open front door into the living room, where Ella was sitting on the rug stacking soft blocks. 17 months old. Brown curls. Jason's eyes. Carol stared at her granddaughter. Her chin trembled. Her fingers twitched at her sides. She said nothing. Not one word about Ella. She turned around. She walked to the Camry. She drove away. 3 weeks later, I saw her again in a courtroom. We are about to walk into that courtroom. Before we do, share this episode right now. Not after. Right now. Send it to one person who is standing at the exact crossroads Sarah was at. Person who is afraid of what the truth will cost them. Share it. Then come back. Let's walk in together. October 21st, 9:47 at night. Jason was asleep. Ella was asleep. The house was doing its quiet nighttime thing, settling and creaking, the dishwasher humming. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water I never touched and opened my nightstand drawer. Connie's letter. The screenshots. The birthday card with the daisies. The subpoena. All layered together like the geological record of the worst 5 years of my life. I went to the closet. Found the brown cardboard box. Took out the quilt square. Folded it neatly. Tucked it into the outside pocket of the bag I'd packed for tomorrow. I didn't need armor. I didn't need a weapon. I just needed the truth, and a little square of fabric my grandmother had stitched with her own hands. Jason woke up at 5. He didn't ask if I was ready. He made coffee. Poured 2 cups. Set mine on the counter without a word. We stood in the kitchen in the gray October morning and drank our coffee. We didn't speak, because there was nothing left to say that 5 years of showing up for each other hadn't already said. At 6:30 we dropped Ella at Jason's parents' house. She waved from the window as we backed out. "Mama, bye-bye." I waved back, smiled. Got in the car. Drove toward Columbus. Parking lot at the Franklin County Courthouse was full. Jason found a spot 2 blocks away and we walked in through the back entrance because Sandra had told me to avoid the front steps. Small town case, big implications. Local stations have cameras out there. Courtroom was built for 80 people. There were over 130 inside. I walked in and saw the divide immediately. Left side, Jason, me, Sandra Reeves, Detective Mercer in a dark blazer with her yellow legal pad on her knee. Kim Vasquez, the dispatch reporter, sat in the press row with a notepad and the quiet energy of someone who has been waiting a long time for something to become real. The 8 witnesses were in a separate room. They'd be called one at a time. Right side, Carol in a black dress, rosary in her lap. Frank in a sport coat that was a size too big. He'd lost weight, I could see it from across the room. Ember 2 rows back, arms folded, jaw set. Her eyes were red, but she was not crying. She was staring at me. Derek was brought in through a side door. Blue button-down, gray slacks, his attorney's choice. He looked smaller. The last time I had seen my brother was 5 years ago at Thanksgiving on Willowbrook Lane, carving the turkey with one hand and resting the other on the back of Dad's chair like he owned the entire room. He didn't own this room. I sat down. Jason took my hand. I adjusted the quilt square in my bag so a corner of it was visible, just to know it was there. Then I looked straight ahead. The judge entered. The room stood. People call Sarah Calloway. I stood. Smoothed my blazer. Walked to the witness stand. Courtroom was so quiet I could hear the fluorescent lights humming above the jury box. 12 faces. 8 women, 4 men. All watching. Sandra approached. Ms. Calloway, can you take us back to Thanksgiving 5 years ago? I told them. I told them about Madison crying in that hallway. I told them about Amber's voice, low and sharp, just don't be alone with him. I told them about sitting on the back porch with a 17-year-old girl who trusted me enough to say the truth out loud. I told them about Detective Mercer's yellow legal pad. I told them about my mother's 8 words. I told them about a group chat that went silent in one swipe. Sandra asked, and did you have any contact with the 8 witnesses prior to their reports? None. I didn't know they existed until Detective Mercer called me 16 months ago. Did you encourage, coordinate, or coach any of them? No. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination. Miss Calloway, isn't it true you carry a personal grudge against your brother? I looked at the attorney. Then I looked at Derek. Then I turned to the jury. I have no grudge against anyone in this room. I reported what I knew. That's all I've ever done. That's all I came here to do. I stepped down. For the first time in 5 years, someone had listened. They came one at a time. Madison first. 23 years old. She walked to the stand with her chin up and her hands clasped in front of her like she was bracing against something invisible. She answered every question clearly. Her voice shook twice. She never stopped. When she finished, she passed my row on her way out. She didn't smile. She just looked at me and gave one small nod, one dip of the chin, and kept walking. Then Kayla, a cousin 20, quiet, shorter than I remembered. She cried through most of her testimony but never asked to stop. When the defense attorney challenged a date in her timeline, she corrected him with a precise month and year. She'd kept a journal. Then the third. A cousin I'd met maybe 4 times in my life. She was 19 now and spoke so softly that the judge asked her to repeat herself twice. Time she did, a little louder. 4th, 5th, 6th. I won't describe their stories here. Each one carried something personal and private to that stand. What I can tell you is this. Every single one of them walked up, said their name, told the truth, sat down, and exhaled like they had been holding their breath for years. Detective Mercer took the stand after the 6th witness. She opened her yellow legal pad, the same one from 5 years ago, and walked the jury through 16 months of investigation. 7 victims came forward independently. An 8th came forward during the investigation. None of them knew about the others until this trial. Courtroom held its breath. After the 6th witness, something broke on the right side of the room. Carol stood up. The bailiff moved toward her. She wasn't heading for the door. She was facing the judge, voice cracking and high. This is not fair. My son is a good man. You are all lying. Every single one of you is. The judge's gavel came down hard. Ma'am, sit down or you will be removed from this proceeding. Frank grabbed Carol's arm and pulled her back into the seat. She folded against him, shaking. The rosary beads clicked as her hands trembled. Then, quieter, into his shoulder. I did what I thought was best for my family. I watched her from across the aisle. This woman who had taught me to make pie crust, who had held my hand in that church pew, who had stood in her kitchen 5 years ago and told me I was burning everything she'd built. She was right about one thing. The family was destroyed. But not by me. It was destroyed by every Sunday dinner where the truth sat at the table and nobody acknowledged it. By every don't make this a thing and every drop it and every door that closed on a child who needed it to open. My mother didn't destroy this family by protecting Derek. She destroyed it by believing that protecting Derek and protecting the family were the same thing. They never were. The DA stood. Courtroom settled. The people call Amber Calloway. The air left the room. Carol's head snapped up. Frank closed his eyes. Derek at the defense table went completely still. Amber stood from the row behind our parents. Her legs were unsteady. She gripped the bench in front of her. Then she let go and walked to the stand. She was sworn in. She sat down. Her hands pressed flat against her knees. She looked at me. And for the first time in 5 years I saw my sister. Not the person who posted on Facebook. Not the voice that called me a liar. Not the hand that sent back the box unopened. My actual sister, the girl I shared a bedroom with until I was 12. The one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. She opened her mouth. Tears were running down her face, but her voice was steady. I believed her. I always believed her because it happened to me too. Courtroom didn't gasp. Just stopped. Every sound, every rustle, every breath. Like the room had been submerged. Carol made a sound, not words, just a sound. Kind you make when something you've been gripping for 30 years finally falls out of your hands. Amber spoke for 4 minutes. Then she looked at me one more time. I called her a liar because if she was telling the truth, then I had to be telling the truth too. And I wasn't ready. I cried. First time in that courtroom. Jason held my hand so tight I could feel his pulse in my palm. 5 years of silence. 1 sentence. And the whole room felt it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 17 minutes. We waited in the hallway. Jason sat beside me on a wooden bench while I stared at the scuff marks on the linoleum. Mercer stood by the window, arms folded. Kim Vasquez sat across from us with her notepad closed in her lap. She wasn't writing. She was just waiting with the rest of us. 3:28, the bailiff came out. They're ready. We filed back in. Nobody had left. Every single person who had been in that courtroom that morning was still there. The jury foreperson stood. A woman in her 60s, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She unfolded the paper. On count 1, guilty. Carol grabbed Frank's arm. On count 2, guilty. She read through all 13 counts. Guilty on 11. Not guilty on 2, timeline questions the defense had hammered hard enough to create doubt. 11 out of 13. More than enough. Derek stood motionless at the defense table while the verdicts were read. He didn't turn around. He didn't look at our mother. He didn't look at me. When the bailiff approached, Derek held out his wrists without being asked. They let him through the side door, the same door he'd come in through that morning in his blue button-down and his khakis. He didn't look back. Side on the courthouse steps, Detective Mercer walked up beside me. Her yellow legal pad was tucked under her arm. You started this, Sarah. 5 years ago you started this. I shook my head. Madison started it. Kayla started it. All 8 of them did. I just opened the door. Jason put his arm around me. Let's go home, I said. Guilty. 5 years. 1 person. 1 report. And a detective who never closed the file. If this story moved you, if you are sitting somewhere right now with your hand over your mouth or tears on your face, hit that like button. Share this episode. Leave a comment telling us what you felt in this moment. Tell us your city. Tell us the time. We read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. You are seen. Now let's finish this. Derek was sentenced to 20 years. No parole eligibility for 14. Callaway Custom Builds dissolved within 6 months. The main office building on Elm Street sat empty for nearly a year before a family from Columbus bought it and converted it into a community health clinic. I thought that was the most fitting thing I'd ever heard. Frank sold the house on Willowbrook Lane. Without Derek covering the mortgage, the math didn't work. He moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Cedar Falls. I heard he ate most dinners alone at the counter of a diner downtown. Carol left Cedar Falls. She went to stay with a cousin in Akron, not Connie. Connie had cut ties with her sister after the trial. 12 years of folding someone else's secret into a small square and tucking it away. You can only do that for so long before the seams give. Amber called me 2 weeks after the verdict. The conversation was 6 minutes long. She didn't apologize. She wasn't ready for that, and I didn't need her to be yet. I started therapy, she said. Good, I said. That was the whole call. 6 minutes. 2 sentences that mattered. It was enough. Madison graduated from Ohio University that spring with a degree in social work. I sent her a card. She sent one back. Inside she had written 5 words. Thank you for going first. I read it at the kitchen table while Ella ate breakfast and smeared yogurt on her face and acted like that was perfectly reasonable. I held the card for a long time. Kim Vasquez ran a 3-part series in the Columbus Dispatch about the case, about how small-town institutions fail victims, about how one person's report becomes the thread that unravels everything. She never used my last name. She referred to me only as the family member who reported first. She sent me a copy of the final piece in the mail with a handwritten note. You never needed anyone's permission to be believed. You just needed time. I put it in the nightstand drawer with the daisies card and the quilt square. Cedar Falls didn't talk about the Callaways much after the sentencing. But the community church started a quiet support fund, anonymous donations, anonymous access. Small change. The kind that doesn't make headlines but reshapes a place one honest conversation at a time. I didn't go back to Cedar Falls. I didn't need to. My home was in Worthington. With Jason. With Ella and her absolute disregard for the laws of gravity and her habit of narrating everything she touches in a language only she fully understands. With a backyard where dead tomato plants mark the place where I once tried and will absolutely try again. People ask me if I regret reporting my brother. I don't. I regret that I had to. I regret that 8 other people carried the same secret for years because our family taught them, without words, just actions, that silence was the price of belonging. But silence is not loyalty. Silence is just being part of the cover-up with better PR. I'd rather be alone and honest than surrounded by people who need me to lie so they can sleep at night. That's not family. That's a hostage situation with a casserole. Forgiveness is something I'm working on. But making things right, that's a different conversation entirely, and it's not one I owe anyone on a timeline they set. That's my story. 5 years of silence. 8 voices. 1 courtroom. And a detective who never, not once, closed the file. Before you go, I need you to do 3 things. Just 3. 1. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what hit you hardest in this story. Was it the quilt square? The 912 likes on Derek's post? Amber's testimony? The 5 words on Madison's card? Tell me. I will read it. 2. Share this episode with one person who needs to hear it today. Not tomorrow. Not after you finish your next task. Right now. Send it as a voice note, a link, a screenshot, however you share things with the people you love. This story saves lives when it reaches the right ears. 3. Tell me your city and what time it is where you are. Drop it below, 'cause I want to see the map of where this story is landing. Every city, every time zone, every person who stayed until the end. If the truth is always worth telling, even when it costs you everything, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, share this, and I'll see you in the next one.